And there couldn't be a better place to start than our first speaker this morning. Hearst has been a regular at these conferences and at the FIP conferences. Some of you were there, I think, in Toronto last year. It's started, of course, as a traditional media company. Its transformation has been spectacular under the mantra months to moments. So please welcome to tell us the story of where Hearst has come from, where it's got to, and where it's going, the President and Chief Executive, Duncan Edwards. Duncan.
Thanks, Mike, and good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be back in Berlin. We come here for the weather, of course, as you can see. So yes, my name's Duncan Edwards, and where's the clicker? That's what we need. The clicker. We'll get the administration errors out at the start. Have you got one? Well, look. So thank you very much. There we go. So, as I think everybody knows, Hearst has been a significant player in consumer media for more than 125 years. So we've got this collective corporate memory about change. We've been in business before radio, before movies, before television, before cable, before the internet. And yet we've been able to create significant businesses in every one of those media at those times of disruptive change in consumer behavior. And also at Hearst, we've been used to being a scale company. We want to be a company that makes a lot of money when from the activities that we're engaged in. And the truth is, we realized 4 years ago or so that in the face of this very disruptive change around digital, and particularly mobile digital, we were in danger of not being able to make the same kind of money that we've been used to making when disruptive changes happen in the past. So we've been changing our business. We decided we wanted to compete, and we've been changing our business ever since in order to be able to compete. The truth is that there's never been a better time to be in the content business. If you think about it, all the friction between us as publishers and the consumer is going away, thanks to the power and the utility of smartphones that we all carry in our pocket. And the access that this gives us is not just constrained to the developed world. In fact, there are going to be huge audiences in the developing world that are going to be available to us. And in markets where, to be frank, the things you need, the physical infrastructure that you need to be in the physical media business are probably never going to be built. Of course, that means that the same access is available to everyone, not just to big media companies like Hearst. And so we feel it's very important to be very disciplined about what you decide to do. You have to limit your choices. You have to be very clear about how you're going to spend your money in order to be able to compete. Our decision is to be a global, digital, mobile content business. We want to create value from the large-scale audiences that we can create around well-defined media brands. And we've been at this new approach for a couple of years now, although I would say we're still not where we intend to be. And we've certainly made some real progress, which I'll share a couple of slides with you up front. So our reach, measured by unique visitors, has grown by 153% to north of 370 million unique visitors a month. This is a Google Analytics number, internal number. And we're serving nearly 3 billion pages to our readers every month, so twice as many as 3 years ago. Our social footprint is up 240%. And all of these metrics around audience are continuing to grow in 2016. If anything, the rate of growth in audience, in reach, and in depth is accelerating. And this has had a very positive effect on monetization. Look, we're a private company, very private company. We don't share our financials, but our global digital business has revenues in the hundreds of millions of dollars and has become a significant and significantly profitable part of our overall business. So our ambition is to be a scale player. we want to be able to offer advertisers serious reach and depth in the markets where we choose to play. Now, we can do that now in the United States. We can do that in the UK, where we've got big reach in Spain, in Russia, in Italy, in Holland, and in China, and we're well on the way in a number of other markets. But the reality is that we had to change so much about what was a traditional magazine publishing business, about how we work as an organization, to get ourselves into a position to be even able to think about competing. You know, for us, it all starts with content. You know, every organization has something at its core, something that it's kind of noble purpose, if you like. And for Hearst, creating great content is the heart of our DNA. That's what we do as an organization. So we knew that we could do this. The problem was that back in 2012, we had none of the systems, the processes, or the technology in place to be able to do this well for a kind of mobile, connected consumer. So we've used this phrase, which you heard earlier, months to moments. We've used this internally and externally to describe the change that we wanted to go through. And one of the triggers for this was the death of Helen Gurley Brown. Now, Helen Gurley, it's not that sad, she was 90, but she was the creator of Cosmopolitan. And she was a real legend in magazine journalism and a bit of an icon in the kind of feminist movement. And was responsible for the creation of Cosmo as the world's arguably the most successful young women's media franchise in the world. Anyway, she died on August 13th, 2012. And of course, there were articles about her extraordinary life all over the web immediately. It was everywhere. Well, I say there were articles all over the web. There were everywhere except on our own website. So Cosmopolitan failed to get an article up about this incredible woman and the person who created the business. It took several days before our very clunky processes, our editorial processes, were able to get a piece up about Helen. And so clearly something had to change. But our months to moments mantra goes further than just being able to publish quickly to the web in the event of a news story. It also refers to that challenge of trying to run a journalistic organization that produces both monthly magazines and a real-time consumer product. So I'm always reminded about this in July. If I'm in London, we have this well-known magazine, Good Housekeeping, very successful women's service magazine. And in July, the editors are engaged in preparing for the Christmas issue. So their PRs are bringing in all the Christmas gifts. There's the smell of roasting turkey in the air. And that's what they're doing. And yet our readers on the website are thinking about summer holidays, they're preparing for picnics, they're drinking Pimm's in the garden. And so how do you make an organization work when you've got these two conflicting timetables? So we've had to reorganize our business to be able to service both of these needs, because we continue to have a very profitable print business. And that has its needs, and we don't want to damage that, as well as this booming digital audience which requires regular feeding. So thinking about all of this in the context of really a decade since we've been engaged seriously in the digital business. 10 years ago, we were largely focused on producing high-quality, evergreen content that was optimized for search, largely for Google. And we still do that. Google and search is still an important traffic driver for us. But we're also producing high-frequency content that's kind of zeitgeist relevant, that the consumer is wanting, and we're doing that on a 24/7 basis, and we're optimizing that for everywhere. A year ago, I was saying we're optimizing it for social, but it's wider than that, truthfully. We want our content to be available everywhere that the consumer seeks to find it. So we've changed the speed and frequency of content production. And we've changed the way our teams are organized. So we are able to produce both the world-class monthly magazines and the world-class websites. We've also changed these kind of old proprietorial habits that were very common in magazines about turf, about territoriality. The classic approach for magazines was to try and get an exclusive and keep that exclusive to your magazine. But in fact, what we've done is we've encouraged it. In fact, we've insisted on a policy of openness and sharing between brands and between countries for the greater benefit of the whole network. So given resources are finite, we've tried to maximize the network effect of having multiple editions. So we've got these things all over the world, and our editors can access that content through through the tools that we've built into our own bespoke platform. We've got a well-organized editorial calendar, which means we don't have multiple teams covering the same events, like the Oscars or the Grammys or MTV Awards and so on. And editors feel they have a team of 50 or 100 people working for them around the clock. And the principle of sharing is now hardwired. It's technologically wired into our system. We have a tool called Buzzing at Hearst, which allows editors to see in real time the performance of every story that's running on the platform and to syndicate it into their own site with one click. So right now, around 20% of our content is shared around the network, and we expect and will be pushing for this figure to rise. You know, I believe the fact that Hearst has its roots in print magazines is a huge advantage. Yes, it means that we've had to make some massive changes to our organization and to our processes, but we have the benefit of a legacy of high-quality journalism going back more than a century. And we really have very high standards that are now also hardwired into our culture. And these standards are born from a medium which you can't delete once you've published it, so you've got to get it right. And so we take our role as editors for big global audiences very seriously. Our products are designed to create lasting relationships with our readers, not just fleeting encounters based on the color of a dress or the latest Japanese cat, although yes, we do those stories as well. So we're ensuring that we produce serious pieces of journalism, specifically for the web, that are born on the web, as well as for our print titles. I won't go through all of these, but the one example I would highlight, if you get the chance, take a look at the Women and Guns package of content on the marieclaire.com. This is an extraordinary package of stories that was built in the US, which has its own slightly odd relationship with guns, as you may know. And it's mainly video-based content, and it's really a very, very strong piece of balanced journalism, which we're extraordinarily proud of, that was web first. And of course, we're distributing our content very widely on social platforms, pretty much anywhere where we can monetize the audiences that we create. These are all familiar names. Well, all the familiar names are here, as well as some that you may not know unless you've worked in Asia or in Russia. Just a word about Snapchat. We're a big partner with Snapchat. Cosmo is the most successful publisher on the Discover platform. People don't realize the scale of the numbers, but we've got about 1.9 million daily visitors to the Cosmo product on Snapchat, spending on average 5 minutes each with the product, and about a 70% completion rate. So this is huge numbers. It's like having a cable channel for your magazine. And we've launched a UK-specific version of that. So there's a Snapchat, there's a Cosmo product on Snapchat in the UK. And look, we strongly believe that the reason for our success on Snapchat and elsewhere is not just because the quality of our content or the technology that's used to deliver it, but the fact that it comes from Cosmopolitan, that it comes from Harper's Bazaar or from Esquire or from Elle. You know, these are really famous brands that over time have built up considerable equity in the minds of the consumer because they've been good products over a long period of time. So it's interesting, you're seeing all over the world publishers that have their roots in print really beginning to post some very interesting results in terms of audience in digital media. in country after country, you'll see the league tables of performance being increasingly dominated by companies with newspaper or magazine backgrounds. We have the brands that consumers and advertisers recognize. In many cases, certainly at Hearst, we've got this existing global footprint. We've got offices in many countries, and we're profitable. So we have the ability to make big investments into technology that are needed, and above all, the brands that give publishers the ability to cut through the extraordinary amount of noise in the content space on the internet. So this has been our journey on the content side, but just as important has been what we've been doing with technology. What the consumer and the advertiser experience is the result of everything working together. To be honest, the content without the technology and the data is a little bit like a car without the engine and the wheels. It just won't work. And 3 years ago, our network in the USA and around the world was using an array of different technologies for every part of the stack. And it was unsurprising, therefore, that we looked like an uncoordinated brand owner. It didn't look like a strong way of presenting ourselves to the consumer, nor was it a strong way of really presenting our marketing capabilities to advertisers. So we made the decision to invest in a single platform that will service the whole of Hearst Magazine's division. That's our US company, our wholly owned companies around the world, and our joint ventures and our licensees. In fact, this platform will also be used for our newspaper company and their websites, and our television company and their websites. So this means we have a single approach to everything that we do. So we don't worry about marginal decisions about product variation, country to country or brand to brand. We can focus our energies on what really matters, which is the content and selling advertising. So the result is a global approach to the product and to the user experience. In other words, we're trying to behave like a real brand owner. The final part of the changes that we've made, the part frankly I'm going to tell you least about, is around advertising. It's interesting. In study after study, in the 30 years that I've been working in magazines, researchers have found, and you can go back and look at these studies, researchers have found that consumers like the advertising that they see in magazines. In fact, they welcome the advertising. They see it as part of the thing that they're buying into, part of the package that they're buying into. And we see absolutely no reason why this shouldn't be the case online as well. Our answer is to make advertising genuinely part of the experience and to allow advertisers access to all the tools that we give our editors. So we've created new ad products that seamlessly integrate the advertising into the site without ever trying to deceive the consumer. And we make it super easy for the advertiser by only requiring one file, which can run on every product that the consumer, every device that the consumer happens to want to use. And in native, we know that advertisers struggle to get attention to content when they produce it and distribute it themselves. That's not what they do. I mean, they create, makeup, or they're good marketing people, but they're not content creators. That's not their DNA. The skill of our journalists and the power of our on and off-platform distribution tools makes content that we produce for advertisers many, many times more effective than anything that they can produce and distribute themselves. In fact, the most viewed piece of content, the single most viewed story on marieclaire.com was this piece of native content, which was done for Tresemme. So I could give you a lot more examples about what we're doing for advertisers. Frankly, I'm going to save them for my presentations to the advertisers. Instead, let me leave you with our to-do list. Look, we've made enormous progress over the last few years. But if anything, our pace of change is accelerating. We're going to complete the migration of all the sites. I mean, this is a big endeavor. We've got about 80 sites in our owned and operated companies. We'll complete the migration of all these sites by around Q3 this year, and we'll start to fill in the gap in our portfolio in different countries with some launches of our brands where maybe they don't exist in print, but we will do them in digital. We just launched Cosmo, for example, in digital only in Japan and in Taiwan. And we've identified 20 markets where we have some presence, where we believe we can have scale. And so we'll be working with our partners, old or new, in order to make sure that we have real scale in those markets. And we're also building a real global advertising sales solution. So we've got sales offices now that can access our global network in New York, in London, in Milan, and in Shanghai. The only other point I'd make is that the investment in technology is not a one-time event. We've understood that as now bringing everything in-house and being a proprietary owner of technology and developer of technology. This is an absolutely ongoing requirement because the changes in consumer behavior, in devices and so on are just not going to stop. So relying on third parties to keep you up to date is not a happy outcome in my view. One final point is I'm currently the chairman of the FIPP, the co-organizer of this event, along with the VDZ. And so a little advertisement for FIP. If you enjoy the conference and you're not a member of FIP, then today's a very good day to join. So, and with that, thank you all very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Duncan. We do have about a minute and a half for questions, so if you'd like to raise your hand, if you have one, do. There is, of course, there are several from me, but if I can kick off with the first one. You mentioned the colossal changes you've been through in terms of making people let go of their interdepartmental boundaries. You know, it's not your content, it's the company's content, and we need to be able to share. Was that a process that went smoothly, or was there fallout, collateral damage? Did you have to make some tough decisions then, or was it something that everyone accepted?
You can tell by my hesitation that obviously it wasn't that smooth. But listen, I think it varied from place to place. You know, in the USA, where we have quite a large organization, we actually made the decision that we would separate the content decisions for digital away from our print businesses. The print businesses are very large businesses in the States. The job of being an editor of a print magazine in the USA is big enough already. To try to get them to be responsible for this always-on, you know, daily, you know, 24/7 content machine, you know, was not going to work. So we separated the business entirely. So our digital editors do not report to the print editors. They report up to a digital editorial director. The US has the scale that can do that. In other markets, we've kind of gone the other way, where we said the market's too small, so we need our editors to, you know, really embrace that. And sometimes that's meant changing who the editor is and changing the people. I mean, the managing director of our Dutch business, Luc Van Os, is here, and they've done an incredible job with all of our digital businesses in Holland. These are pretty small teams, but it's a fully integrated content team. Regarding content sharing, yeah, I mean, we just had to, you know, mandate this because, you know, there has been this sort of concept that the magazines own the content, and they just don't. I mean, it's just factually not true. The company owns it. It's up to us what we do with it, and you know, that's done. It's accepted. Everybody understands it. So we even share content online between magazines that are directly competitive. So Elle and Bazaar will use content from each other. They will acknowledge where the content has come from. But they will run each other's content on their websites. Why not?
Absolutely. I'm sure there are more questions, but I know that, Duncan, you're around for the rest of the day and can always be buttonholed. So can I ask you, please, to thank Duncan Edwards. Thank you.